Our next piece on the agenda is a industrial lands analysis presentation. And I think Renata's going to make that presentation today. Thanks, Renata.
Thank you for making time on your agenda today. Excuse me, I'm very excited to share some highlights of a culmination of about a year's work on behalf of the county. They were the lead on this effort with a generous grant from Metro to take an in-depth look at the employment and industrial land that we have in the county. Canby fared very well in this analysis. 3 of our sites were studied in depth, which is a huge gift to the property owners, to the future buyers and developers of this property, because it does a lot of the due diligence in advance. There's not going to be any surprises, and there's a lot of great numbers here. I'm not going to go into great depth, but I'd encourage you to look at this executive summary and highlights of our 3 sites at your leisure. There's lots of really good information here that we can build on over time. The study included quite a bit, actually. They developed an area plan for each site that looked at how do we maximize the ability of that land, the largest footprint possible, taking into account Canby's setback standards and storm drainage and parking requirements and landscaping requirements, et cetera. So a new developer looking at that saying, what's the biggest building we could build here, and what could that look like? Here's some ideas. It's one concept, but a reasonable concept, something that meets the industry clusters that Canby has identified. Manufacturing, food processing would be the primary ones that were designated for the 3 sites. As part of the work, they did some marketing as well. They created some attractive flyers that you'll find in your packet. They also evaluated how many jobs per acre the sites might accommodate, what types of additional investments might be needed to address any environmental concerns, transportation access, et cetera. So we have a really good idea of what it might take. The best news possible is that our site, the site that the city owns, the Urban Renewal Agency owns, is the only absolutely ready for development site of all of the sites that Clackamas County studied. It's Tier 1, it's ready now.
I'm sorry, that was the entire county?
In the entire county,
Okay.
yeah. And that's because
Just wondering
of the development agency's good work in extending Sequoia Parkway and 4th Avenue with great transportation infrastructure all the way, well, 3/4 of the way around the site, and all of the infrastructure in place. So that's exciting. So I'm going to kind of show you the first site, which is ours. And our site is the one on the upper right with the curved edge on it. The property owner to the south, and then over to the left, that's owned by Trend Business Center. So it's kind of an odd-shaped lot, but when you aggregate it together, it comes up to almost 12 net acres of developable land with a maximum build-out capacity of 160,000 square feet. And the projected jobs potential, 179, with an estimated jobs density of about 13 per acre. That's if we did 4 different buildings ranging in size from about 27,000 square feet to the largest at 80,000 square feet, and that'd be 4 buildings on the site. The reason they designed that particular scenario is that they wanted to respect property boundaries. Yes, it's very possible that the adjacent property owners, including us, might collaborate for one deal, but for this particular study, we wanted to do that. So the second site is immediately across the street. There are 2 property owners involved there. And altogether, that site, oh, let me go back to this one. You'll look on the right-hand side and you'll see all those environmental constraints that the map could potentially have, including streams and creeks and lakes and rivers and wetlands and slopes and floodplains. None of those appear on our site. That's what you want to see. None of them appear on this site either, which is the second site, Canby Development Site 2. The only potential issue with this one, if you wanted to maximize the building footprint on it and do a very long vertical building of about 260,000 square feet, is that there are some slope issues. There's about a 15 to 18-foot drop over the course of the site. And since we're trying to maximize the potential on that, you would need to do some grading, which can be expensive. But if the developer wanted to do something less than that or be creative about how the building laid, you wouldn't have to have those costs necessarily. It could be quite a bit lower. So on this particular site, the net developable acres is almost 34 acres. Total build-out, 532,950 square feet. Projected direct employment, 593, and estimated job density about 17.6 per acre. So that site has a lot of potential. They were envisioning this for a mix of manufacturing as well as food processing. And we've talked with a number of food processing over the years, so eventually I think we'll get one of them. So the last site is the Wygant property. And on the left-hand side is the building that you just, or the street that you just dedicated in June, the extension of the Sequoia Parkway, which brings all the utilities to the west side of that property. And then to the north is Township, and on the west is Malino, east is Malino. Both of those are not to industrial standards. Over time, especially if a large user locates there, they may want access off of Malino. So at some point, that'll be a conversation with the county and the city and how we make that happen, but not anytime right away. So this particular site is 33, no, wait a second, getting ahead of myself here. 60.3 acres. You could put 1,114,875 square feet on this site. Projected direct jobs, 1,236. Million would be better, I would think. Estimated.
Real number, I'm sorry, we're not. 1,000 what?
1,236.
Thank you.
Estimated job density of 20.5 per acre. And so this would be 3 buildings ranging in size from 192,000 square feet to 548,000 square feet. This one also has no development issues to speak of. Over time, though, to accommodate industrial demand in the overall park as well as the residential that might be coming to the west with the annexation that was approved last night, there's a pump station that was planned at the very bottom triangle. It's in our urban renewal plan, and at some point, we may need to pull the trigger on that when there's actually a development that we're talking with. So that's the summary of the site information, and as I said, there's a lot more detail in your packets, so please take a look at that. So in terms of next steps, we're working with the state and the county, of course, to get these sites recertified and certified. That notebook has been in the state's hands now since January, so we're hoping that we'll get the good word sometime soon. We don't know yet when that would be. We also met today with all of the property owners that were represented on these 3 properties, showed them scenarios. Universally, they were very happy with the information and had good comments, some questions, some new information that we're going to be updating this report with. For instance, we found that one of the sites already has the environmental work done on it, so that's good news. We'll continue to work with the county and the region to promote these sites. They'll be updating the Clackamas County Site Search online database with all of this information. I'll be updating the city's database of available sites with this information. And then statewide, there's Oregon Prospector, so that will be getting this information as well. And very few sites have this level of detail, so I think it'll really help our sites stand apart. So with that, I'll stop, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Renata, if you go back, well, since looking at, okay, Site 1, it is, kind of has a weird jog to it, where it seems like it's almost two sites, two pieces of property,
It's actually three parcels, three separate ownerships.
three separate, okay. So, no, I understand that. I think away, maybe I was misunderstanding the layout here. The way I was looking at was so ours is so it's just us where it says, there at the bend, that's just ours. Okay,
That's 6
Right.
acres.
okay.
And that particular parcel could accommodate a 80,000 square foot building.
Okay. And then on site, KB Development Site number 3, the Wygant property, that bottom corner in the pictures that you have in here in our handout with like the building layouts, and I understand it's just probably a proposed piece and what it would look at, it just seems that we lose that bottom corner of that triangle. And
I
maybe just
see.
a more of a building layout that we're looking at here that's proposed. So we
Yeah,
could have
that's interesting.
better build out of that property.
I think they stayed with squares and rectangles because that's typically the configuration that manufacturers want, but,
Yeah, just the way
Okay, good.
how you maybe, I don't know if it more of, something smaller. I know you got to factor in parking lots and that kind of thing, and manufacturing probably with delivery and truck radius. I'm
so
not,
the reason that that site, the building is angled the way it is,
Sort of right.
is because the rail line is right adjacent,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to be able to on and offload
Absolutely.
there. So if that rail line weren't there, the logical thing would be just to flip it vertical and have it in the lower left corner,
yeah, I guess I think
and
it was
make it
just-
as big as possible.
Yeah, I was just thinking kind of similar layout on that, on the other side of the track as well, in that green
On-
space there on the picture.
On the other side is significantly more topography.
Okay.
And that's the Wygant's family home.
Okay.
They're not really wanting to sell that. And it's also quite a bit hillier. So it would...
Quite a bit
Hillier.
Okay. I just thought I'd ask
so-
that question. Perfect.
And so on this particular one, it's a little harder to see, but they are proposing a rail spur that goes up between the two buildings, providing rail access to both of the buildings. And by the way, this is the only site in the whole metro area that is of this size, so over 50 acres, and has rail service, so.
Renata, now that you brought up the rail spur piece, and I know that was, we've talked about the team track as a component that we've looked at, and I know for us trying to, I think, own that piece of it and have that as part of our industrial park and the benefits of that, I think having had some conversation with Councilor Parker about that as well, as you go further down that rail line, I know that moves us out of Canby and more into Clackamas County, that maybe that's a possible location, because there's that warehouse piece as you go down Malino
Right,
Road, as you're on
yeah.
your way out that way, and the rail continues out that way. I don't know if that's something that, I know that, again, that's not within our urban growth boundary and maybe a direct benefit to us from a, employment lands, et cetera. However, is that something that we might look at suggesting to Clackamas County?
It's a really good thought. When I was talking with the consultant that did the analysis, they looked at a Canada example, and they had a gravel pad right up against the railroad track and a country road, and that worked for, a basic service. And so along those lines, that site could potentially work as long as there's some way to get truck access to it. And I like it also because the team track really doesn't add a lot of assessed value or jobs, really. It does provide an amenity to the industrial park and to the greater community, and so if it could be accommodated somewhere else, not on our precious industrial land, that would be a real benefit. It's worth exploring.
Well, I think that's kind of what Councilor Parker had thrown out as a potential idea is as we move down that track, that's a whole lot of, that opens up a lot of potential for truck turnarounds and things like that don't eat up
Yeah,
our industrial park. Councilor Parker.
absolutely.
Yeah, I think you said it well, Mayor, that we don't want to use our precious industrial land to have something with low assessed value. But I'm glad you brought up Malino, and I'm convinced that in the next 10 years that has to be brought up to industrial standards, that the Wygant property is clearly our piece of gold out there. And if we were able to combine that with a team track, rail access out there, either adjacent or further, slightly outside of that. Now, the question is, how do we get buy-in from the county commissioners? And if, in fact, we were able to bring them in as partners by having a team track on county property or county unincorporated areas, that would do it. The other thing that I'd suggest to our fellow councilors is that we often are at social and other meetings with the county commissioners, and whether they mean it or not, they always say, well, what can we do for you? And I think it's time for us to start salting the mines and mentioning Malino Road, that's going to have to be widened and brought up to industrial standards if we're going to be having trucks going in and out of there. So it's the sort of thing that takes a long political lift, but I think it's something both with our state legislators and with our county is that we say, look, you will become the bottleneck. We've spent our money on a road that gives us additional access, and it stops there. That we're not going to be able to bring freight in and out of that country road. So that's one thing. The second thing, I did have one question about this, and this is going to seem like one of my crazy questions. But do you agree with the inputs and the conclusions of this report?
I was very involved with the county, and I worked with the consultant team to make sure that they had the best information possible.
Okay.
So, and I got a chance to review the fairly final draft.
All right.
So I am comfortable with it, and I'm comfortable with the traded sector industries that they chose for us. I think they're a fit with our industry clusters.
Yeah, the only thing that raised my eyebrows was on the executive summary prospective key clusters for employment, and while this may be true, I would just hate to have anybody say, well, you don't have health care here, so I'm not going to think about locating my medical development corporation here because this chart doesn't say so. So it's just in terms of a marketing thing, we're handing this out, that I would hate it to become a limiter.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, internally, I see where this is helpful, that this gives us clear focus, but I would hate for a developer to be saying, okay, well, I want to put in a medical manufacturing company. Who here? Well, Canby doesn't, but Clackamas area does. So that's the only thing that made me worry. But I'm glad you had full participation with both the inputs and the conclusions.
Well, and manufacturing, especially advanced manufacturing metals and machinery, that would cover a number of medical devices, and I would love to have a medical manufacturer here.
That's a good catch there, Councilor. Any other questions or comments for
Thanks for the report. It's terrific.
Great job, Renato.
Okay.
In fact, if I may, Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I was rereading Gulliver's Travels the other day, and there was a mention about politicians in it, and how worthwhile they were or were not. And it talked about farmers being more important than politicians, and particularly the phrase was that the farmer who can make 2 ears of corn grow where there was only one is worth more than all of the politicians in the world. I want to tell you tonight, I think that in many ways, you are more valuable than the politicians in this room. That what you've done for the city and the foundation that you have set for us is going to result in jobs for a lot of people. So thank you.
Thank you.
Renata's our farmer.
Farm in a different way. Thank you, Renata.
Thanks, Renata.
Communications at this point. Kim, Joe, Rick, Donna. All right.
All shine with the
Pathetic sheet.
It's our first opportunity for citizen input and community announcements, and we have some scouts here joining us this evening, and our council president did not warn you that the mayor likes to have you come up to the microphone and introduce yourselves and tell us what troop you're with, so your name, what troop you're with, what badge you're working on, and your favorite subject in school.
There you go.
I'll
Part of
keep it
leadership here.
pretty easy for you guys.
Public crowd.
Alright, I'm Kyle. I'm part of Troop 503, and we're working on our citizenship and the community badge.
And I'm Scott, Troop 503. Yeah.
And your favorite subject in schools?
I would have to say math.
Mine is engineering.
You're talking Counselor Dale's language.
You just struck a couple of chords there, gentlemen. For the future. Well, gentlemen, thank you for coming and earning your merit badge with us this evening. We appreciate it, and stay tuned. We'll try to make this as exciting as we can for you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Any other citizen input this evening before we move on? Seeing no one rushing up, we'll move on. Mayor's business, yes, as Renata mentioned, last night was election night, and so I want to thank everyone in Canby here that voted and expressed their thoughts on a great many things here in our city and as well as the state of Oregon. So it was I think we had the best turnout of all the cities in Clackamas County. Is that correct, Councilor Hensley?
Yes, we did.
Yes, so that's excellent. I will take that. We were over 70%,
Yes.
so, yes.
Countywide was 66.
So, great job, Canby. Congratulations to Councilor Parker and Councilor Rocha for winning their races and retaining your seats, so welcome and congratulations. Councilor Coleman? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Tough race, and we know that we will not see we've not seen the last. I know we've got a number of meetings left, but thank you for your service so far, and I know you'll finish strong, and we will, I'm sure, see you in a great many other committees.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I also say congratulations to newly elected Councilor Tracy Height on her election. She'll be joining us officially at the beginning of January, and so I'll make sure that I split the Tracys so that I can keep that straight. Yeah, thanks.
Just say TH.
TH, yeah. That won't cause any problems at all. I also want to thank the Canby voters for approving the annexations to the city. Those are big pieces for our growth from a residential standpoint, so thank you very much for approving those pieces. Moving into just some events this week and the last couple weeks, pardon me. Thank you to Jamie Stickle and the Main Street program and the businesses in downtown for a great Halloween parade and activities. We had a tremendous turnout from everyone downtown and in costumes, and the businesses really participated well, and I really appreciate that, and thank you for doing that. And also to, I think it's Yvonne Scott who put together the haunted house out at the fairgrounds. I went through it, walked by myself because my daughter would not go through it with me, and I was well scared. Yes.
Well scared.
I was well scared, yes. I think my daughter said I screamed like a little girl.
Very good.
Yes. I'd been a number of years since I've been in a haunted house, and they did a fantastic job. It was worth the $5 entry to get in there, so yes, it was great. So I'm looking forward to more for next year. They had a Wizard of Oz site, but I heard it was pretty tame, and so I went for the scare factor. For those of you that are into art, your mayor has been the subject of a Baker Prairie Middle School art project, and that'll be unveiled next Thursday at Baker Prairie Middle School. So it was a hour-long interview with pictures, and then so I'm intrigued as to what they're going to do with those pictures and interview. But if you're interested, it's at Baker Prairie Middle School next Thursday, I believe from 4 to 5. They'll have some light refreshments, and they interviewed a number of people throughout Canby, and it's kind of a interviewing art project, so it'll be interesting to see what comes about, so I'm pretty excited about that. And then this morning, Renata and myself, with the help of Dr. Deanna Bridgman, held our 5th business cluster meeting this morning with the medical and health services field here in Canby. So it was interesting that that wasn't checked. We had a really great turnout for this cluster. I think we've got one more, and it was just very good conversation, great networking. There wasn't a lot, I think, feedback for the city necessarily, but it was more concerns from them about the Affordable Care Act, Cover Oregon, how that's impacting their business. Actually, with the new electronic medical reporting, EMR, right? Did I do that okay, Rick? Thanks. That internet speeds were a very big issue, and many of them were not aware that Canby Telecom had the gigabit piece, and so there was a number that were feverishly scribbling in that regards, and just so it was really great networking. And I think of this group, they really enjoyed being brought together, and I think a couple of them were talked about turning into it kind of their own little networking piece. But a lot of people didn't know that we have a speech therapist in town, and we have a hand therapist in town, and all those things. So it was a really great meeting. So Renata, again, another thank you for continuing those. And I think we have one more that we're going to schedule, and that is
Wholesale trade.
wholesale trade. Perfect. And with that, I know I said it, didn't I, Tracy? With that, we'll start liaison reports with Councilor Rocha.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Canby Fire, I always enjoy going to the board meetings. There's a few times when I go that it's always special because they swear in new volunteers. And one of the cool things about that is that Chief Davis and even Ted Coons did a good job too, is they always make sure they thank the family members of the volunteers, because they sacrifice a lot too and help support those people. So I just wanted to commend Chief Davis for that, and the new volunteer firefighters that are with Canby Fire now. Those are a great group of guys. On the Parks and Rec front, the last meeting talked about the possibility of extending the logging road from 13th out 4 more miles, and that Clackamas County was going to put up the money for that. I know they want to get together with the Bike and Ped Committee, talk about that. I know Matilda's working on talking to one of the property owners about getting property donated, but that's becoming like a big deal. So that would be a great addition to Canby. Dog Park is still in the works. They're working with Wilderness International, their involvement as well as possible high school involvement. They got some new numbers back on phase 1, and it's coming in less than the original bid, so that is good news. They are still moving forward with that. And that is my report.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Hensley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On liaison front, Riverside Neighborhood Association held a neighborhood meeting for the Birch Street neighbors regarding some traffic issues that the Traffic Safety Commission is addressing. Basically just throwing out some, not really proposals, but more or less throwing out the ideas that have come about through the traffic safety meetings and trying to acquire some feedback from the neighbors on those ideas. And I think they're trying to narrow down what proposal they're going to end up presenting to us. That was actually all on liaison reports. C4's tomorrow night, but I did a number of community events in the last few weeks since our last meeting. Ribbon cuttings at Spring Chickens and Big Five, so welcome to those wonderful businesses to town, and especially for you down here, our lovely Women's Boutique had a fall preview that was very well attended. And
Especially for who?
especially for
Oh,
us
I thought you were
ladies,
looking at
especially
Brian.
for you. Yes, especially for you.
Sorry, that's what I thought.
I was
The ladies' boutique down here in the Graham Building, Councilor Coleman's neighbor. Sorry for the confusion.
That was a good plug for whatever it was that you were selling.
Just especially for you.
The name of the business is especially for you,
Yes.
located on,
Second and Grand,
Second
in the
and
Graham
Grand, there you
Building. All that to say, she had a lovely event.
Good.
And also the Halloween, which you mentioned. We did the trick-or-treating thing with the kids' parade, and you might have noticed that Counselor Hensley was not there, but rather Raggedy Ann. So that was good fun. And I attended the Chamber Lunch and the Taste of the Seasons event, which is a wonderful place to see all your neighbors and friends from town. And just a quick reminder, again, Sunday mornings, Auxiliary has their community breakfast at the Legion. So I did that a couple weeks ago, and I think I feel it coming on again this weekend. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you. Counselor Coleman.
Mr. Mayor, on the liaison reports, I too attended the Riverside Neighborhood Association meeting. Appreciate everyone that came to that. We got a lot of good information, and had the chance to go over with Robert Backstrom, who's our secretary on our traffic safety, and we got to meet with the fire chief and the battalion chief. And one of the things we wanted to point out is any recommendations that we put forth that we have their blessing on them, and they understand what our problem is that we're trying to accomplish. And so our traffic safety will be meeting this Friday in the Public Works Conference Room from 8:30 to 10, and we'll keep you apprised of our findings and make any recommendations. And that completes my liaison reports, but I just would also like to congratulate the newly elected Canby City Councilors, Tracy Height, Todd Rocha, and Greg Parker. These are all very fine citizens who I know will represent Canby very well. I'd also like to thank all the supporters that have supported me in my short time as a Canby City Councilor. It's been a privilege to serve the community, and I'm proud to do it. And I plan to stay very active in the future and give the mayor and the council members my support.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilor.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Clint. Mr. Mayor, I likewise attended the Taste of the Seasons and ate too much, and attended Big Five opening and spent too much. So both were good. Along with Big Five, talking to their manager, he said that he's proud to have the Canby store as the largest store in the region by far. And if you've been in there, you can see it is big. A lot of selection. He told me it's one of their experimental stores in terms of what they offer. They offer things that other stores do not, and just to see how they'll work, how they'll retail. So we're blessed to have just a larger selection than any of the other stores around. A great place. Was able to visit with some of the employees, high school age kids from Molalla and Canby, and was able to thank them for being there. Smart kids. They really knew their products and services too. So I just encourage everyone, go on in there, take your wallets. Rick and I were trying to figure out how to safely leave our cards somewhere else. It didn't work. But welcome to Canby, Big Five. On the Canby utility front, they have selected Waldron as their recruiting firm and are moving on and finding their next administrator and general manager.
Perfect.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Counselor Parker.
Well, I'll just dovetail on Councilor Dale's comments about Big Five, that it's an opportunity for Canby to shop local. One of the strategic things about having a place like that is that people don't have to go to Wilsonville or Milwaukee. And while those are lovely communities, once you're there, you may decide also to have dinner or spend some more money. So we like to keep our money local. Also, it's going to have a huge impact on redevelopment of that mall there, which has been needed. So thank you, Big Five, for coming. Halloween, want to do a shout out to Jamie and her volunteers with the Main Street program. I was wandering around, I'm sorry, not in costume, but talking to the businesses, and they said this clearly was the busiest Halloween that we have ever had. And for those of us who have a vision of Canby where people are walking up and down the streets, this was a dream come true. So thanks for those who helped out. Coming up on Main Street, we've got First Friday, show up downtown, lots of cool things going on. The Main Street program is working the next event, Light Up the Night, our holiday Christmas activities at Waite Park. On the bicycle committee, they're taking a look at some tourism grants, and And also, I think we need to, my committee needs to get together with your committee to talk about some things. One of the neat ideas that the bike committee came up with was looking at bicycling corridors, and one of them being the Canby Ferry coming down to Holly and Territorial there. And what a nice place that would be to have a rest stop, a drinking fountain, and a place to set your bike to do any sort of repairs. Funny enough, we do have a proposed park there. So the idea might be that we could get together with the park and also the Canby Livability Coalition and see if there's some way of reinvigorating that effort by bringing in cyclists as a way to add some additional energy there, because that's going to be an important waste stop on a cycling freeway, I see. Historic review, taking a look at some historic designations and plaques. I wrote a support letter for a grant to get some plaques up of some of our historic buildings. And then the Arts Commission, now that we have our first 2 art installations, they're looking at number 3.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I didn't have any liaison in the last couple of weeks, but I was able to go to the opening of the Big Five, and I'm sure glad I didn't go to Cabela's open. I don't think I'd have got in, so it was nice to see how much of the sporting goods that we do have here, and it's going to be great for
It is.
Canby.
It is. Thank you all. Back to the Big Five piece, I think, yeah, their usual store is like 14 or 16,000 square feet. This one's 20, and so it is a bigger footprint. And I was talking with the manager, and she was telling me that about 70% of her team is hired from Canby.
Very good.
So we were talking about how that's just kind of a perfect job for those students, probably juniors and seniors that are looking for that first job opportunity, and that was one of her goals, was to try to do that. So that's a big piece for sure. I was remiss. I have some recognition here. It was to be given to our assistant city manager and HR director here as a thank you to her and to city staff. But she is out sick, so I will say my words and pass it on down to you, Rick, and maybe we can orchestrate your next department head meeting or something. I can come by and thank everyone and officially give that to her. But it was just a certificate of appreciation to our assistant city manager, Amanda Zyber, and to the city staff for the tremendous job that they did in the absence of a city manager for the last, it was a pretty long stretch. We kept putting irons in the fire here as a council, and staff kept juggling those and dealing with them as best as they can, with as creative as we can get up here sometimes, and we kept things moving. I think that was the most impressive piece, was that things continued, the momentum that we'd had continued. We didn't lose too much steam moving forward, so now that Rick is here, and we know that will pick up, but I really do appreciate our city staff very much. Thank you all very much for holding it together and moving things forward. Sometimes during some trying times and some challenging times, but I think the team is stronger and very focused moving forward, and I'm sure everyone up here as well, thank you very much for all your hard work, and really do appreciate it. So I think we won't have that thrust upon you anytime, at least in the next 2 years. Right, Rick? So, Rick, I'll just pass that to you, and maybe we'll talk. Wouldn't be a good time to...
Yeah, I will keep it out of Amanda's reach until
Okay.
I can schedule.
So, well, thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
That's a preference.
So consent agenda is next here.
Mr. Mayor, I move for approval of the minutes of the October 15th, 2014 City Council regular meeting.
Great, thank you, sir.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councilor Rocha. Motion's been made by Councilor Dale and seconded by Councilor Rocha to approve the consent agenda, which includes the approval of minutes of the October 15th, 2014 City Council regular meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 6-0. Resolutions and ordinances.
We only have one tonight. We have ordinance 1408. This is authorizing amendment number 2 to the contract with Curran & Cloud Inc., consulting engineers for engineering services regarding 2014 wastewater treatment plant improvements.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, it's a pretty straightforward amendment. You had approved the scope of work to be done, however, hadn't yet set approved the amendment to the contract establishing the fee. Fee proposed is $50,000, not to exceed $50,000.
Perfect. So it's pretty standard, just layering that we've got here, and that project's going to be done this next calendar year.
Yes, it's a 14-15 project.
Great. Any questions at all or comments for staff? No? Okay, great. I'll take a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move for ordinance number 1408, and an ordinance authorizing the City of Canby to execute amendment number 2 to the contract with Curran McLeod, Inc., consulting engineers for engineering services regarding 2014 wastewater treatment plant improvements.
I'll second.
Motion is made by Councilor Dale and seconded by Councilor Rocha to approve ordinance 1408, authorizing the City of Canby authorizing amendment number 2 to the contract with Curran McLeod Incorporated, consulting engineers for engineering services regarding the 2014 wastewater treatment plant improvements. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 6-0. Great, thank you all. New business this evening. I don't think we have anything on that. Thank you, sir. City Administrator's business and staff reports.
Yes, you have in your packet the minutes of our October 13th Management Committee meeting for your review and comment. In addition to that, it's been a really good month. Had an opportunity to spend an afternoon with Chief Davis touring the city and identifying challenges that City Fire has in addressing the needs of a growing community. Additionally, I've scheduled a time later this month to do a ride-along in the evening with Canby Police staff. Should be an interesting trip. Had an opportunity over the last several weeks and was able to rub elbows with each of you at different times to attend a number of community functions. Very enjoyable, outstanding community, lots and lots of enthusiasm for many, many aspects of the local community, and I would say lots of enthusiasm for the work that the council is doing now to improve the quality of life of the people living in the community.
Great. Thank you, Rick. I will say that, let's see, you're on week 3?
Yeah, I'm actually on week 4.
Week 4. And,
I'm still smiling.
yeah, we talked a little bit about this today, and the feedback that I've received just on how quickly you came in, started attending, the various committee and board meetings and things like that, and really trying to get a handle on where Canby has been and where we're going has been very noticed by city staff, by us, and by many of our citizens. So thank you for coming in and hitting the ground running, and in a lot of cases, very much so. So thank you for that. Appreciate that a lot. Second opportunity this evening for citizen input. If anybody wants to sound off on anything we've talked about, or seeing nobody rushing to the microphone, not even scouts. Action review.
You have approved the consent agenda, and you've approved ordinance 1408 to come up for second reading on November 19th.
Fantastic, thank you. Joe, is there an exec session this evening?
There is not.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Want to make sure we give you an opportunity to talk this evening.
Thank you.
Before I adjourn, stay tuned to your TV, because we will quickly move into a brief urban renewal agency meeting. So don't go anywhere, don't change that dial. We'll be continuing here briefly in a moment. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Mayor, I move we adjourn the city council meeting.
Second.
Motion's been made by Counselor Hensley, seconded by Counselor Rocha to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. That takes care of that. We are adjourned, and with that,
Very good.
to you.
We'll call to order the Canby Urban Renewal Agency special meeting of November 5th, 2014. We'll rely on the Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence we held earlier tonight. Next on our agenda, we have the consent agenda approval.
Chairman Dale, I move to approve the consent agenda, which include the approval of the minutes of the October 1st, 2014 URA special meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Vice Chairman Hodson and seconded by Commissioner Hensley. The approval of the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of October 1st, 2014 Urban Renewal Agency special meeting. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have citizen input. Got another chance? Seeing none. Do we have any community announcements, Kim?
No.
None tonight, thank you. Next up, we have new business, an update on the Civic Center project. And for that, we have Rick.
Yes, I do have an update and positive progress to report to you. We have received 5 proposals for construction manager services. After reviewing the proposals, we selected 3 firms for interviews, and I will be bringing to you in a meeting of the 12th of November a recommendation and a proposed contract. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to pull off the latter, and in fact, I didn't. Amanda did, of getting the contract ready and out to you in time to actually do the resolution and contract approval for the firm that I will be recommending next Wednesday. I'll have a full presentation and outline of the process that we undertook in conducting the interviews, the selection process. It was, I will tell you today, it was not a unanimous selection. However, I do feel very comfortable in the recommendation that I'll be making to you.
Okay.
Thank you. Next, we have resolutions and ordinances. Kim?
First item we have is URR 14-007. This is appointing the director of the Canby Urban Renewal Agency.
All righty, up until this point, Amanda Zeiber, our Assistant City Administrator, has also been filling the role as Director of the Urban Renewal Agency, and now that we have Rick on board, we need to formally appoint him as Director of the Urban Renewal Agency, and for that, I need a motion, please.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt resolution number URR 14-007, a resolution of the Canby Urban Renewal Agency appointing the Director of the Canby Urban Renewal Agency.
I'll second.
Should we name him in that, or?
I will. It's been moved by Commissioner Hensley and seconded by Commissioner Rocha for resolution number URR 14-007. Ooh, 007.
007, right?
good.
Like it.
A resolution of the Canby Urban Renewal Agency appointing Rick Robinson as Director of the Canby Urban Renewal Agency. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, Rick, and thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Kim?
Next item we have is URR 14-008. This is approving a minor amendment to the Canby Urban Renewal Plan to clarify Section 600.A.3 public facilities by identifying projects to be undertaken consistent with the objectives of the plan.
All right, as some of you remember, last month, Chief Davis of Canby Fire Department came before the agency to request the expenditure of urban renewal funds on some repair and rehabilitation of the Canby Fire Department main station at the corner of Pine and 99E. Those funds are already in possession. There's no new indebtedness. It's already in possession of the fire department. However, they're being retasked from a project that they were approved for in 2006, which will not be done, be retasked for this. And to do that, we have to do what's called a minor amendment to our urban renewal plan. And so that's what we're doing tonight. It's a piece of housekeeping. Any questions of the agency?
I might add,
did you have?
just one further clarification to that. There actually are 4 words being added to the definition, and all it really does is clarify the meaning of rehabilitation, but the 4 words being added are repair, improvement, expansion, and conservation. And all it does is provide clarification to the term that was already in the document of, and that term was rehabilitation.
Very good. All righty. Any other discussion? Okay, need a motion?
I move for resolution number URR 14-008, a resolution approving a minor amendment to the Cambria Urban Renewal Plan to clarify section 600.A.3, public facilities, by identifying projects to be undertaken consistent with the objects of the plan.
Second.
Who got it?
She did.
Okay. It's been moved by Commissioner Rocha and seconded by Commissioner Hensley for resolution number URR 14-008, a resolution approving a minor amendment to the Canby Urban Renewal Plan to clarify section 600.A.3, public facilities, by identifying projects to be undertaken consistent with the objectives of the plan. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And it carries 7-0. That concludes our agenda. Is there any other new business from the agency, from our administrator? Nope. All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move that we adjourn.
Second.
Give it to Clint.
It's been moved by Commissioner Ryder and seconded by Vice Chairman Hodson.
I'll take it.
That we adjourn. It's a non-debatable motion, so all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carries 7-0. Thank you, Canby, and good night.